Welcome to the Voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL, 950 AM, 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. And don't forget, you can also hear us at our parish website at stanthonyalston.org. That's stanthonyalston.org. So we're talking about this letter from Cardinal Burke called Discipline and Doctrine, Law in the Service of Truth and Love. And he's talking about his concerns, as I said, over the past couple of days. He's talking about his concerns that there is action in the church that is separating the pastoral from the doctrinal and the discipline of the church, from canon law and all that. And he says this is a problem. And what I explained to you is, in fact, the way the church operates is you have these two pillars on everything. So as I brought out on Tuesday, you have that we follow scripture and tradition. We follow institutional and charismatic, which means spirit-led or the canon law. So you have all these different things that are part of the church. We have the priesthood of the ordained. We have the priesthood of the laity. We have all these things. So the church is very binary in what it does. And it's important that you have a good balance between the two. It really creates a problem when you overemphasize one or the other. And that's going to happen in a lot of ways because it's always a balance. So there's always... you can't keep everything, like when I was in the Navy. I mean, you can't keep everything at 000 degrees true consistently. You're going to be bounced around by the weather and everything else. And so you're going to keep it as much as you can on 000 degrees true. You're going to be I'll put it this way, 359 degrees, 355 degrees at times true, and then 005 degrees true. It's going to happen, but your focus is to stay in that balance so that you are going 000 degrees true. Now, so we have what he's talking about is a separation, that his concern is that there's too much a focus on the pastoral and not enough focus on the doctrinal. And so he says what happens is when you do bring up this lack of balance, and you're often seen as a critic of Pope Francis. And he says, that's not the truth, but people will dismiss you as a critic of Pope Francis. And I don't think the Pope would, but here, let's go to the next step. The matter is complicated because the rhetoric is often attached to language used by Pope Francis in a colloquial manner, whether during interviews given on airplanes or to news outlets, or in spontaneous remarks to various groups. Such being the case, when one places the terms in question within the proper context of the teaching and practice of the Church, he may be accused of speaking against the Holy Father. So you see what he's saying there. He says, wait a minute, when the Pope makes this remark, when he's responding, for example, to a reporter, and he makes this remark, and you say, well, that's his position, but it's not exactly in union with the canon law. People say, well, we dismiss canon law, we have to listen to the Pope. And he's basically coming out and saying, yes, however, when the Pope is speaking in this manner, he's not speaking as an authority. And you have to understand another part, which he doesn't bring up, and it just isn't necessarily part of the letter, but I think it's important to bring up. When regardless of who you are, I can give you a classic example that happened to one of our New England bishops, who obviously didn't speak to me before he went on the air. He went on hardball with Chris Matthews. Now, I had previously, many months before, maybe in years, been on hardball with Chris Matthews, so I can know how he can be. And the bishop was very well known. He's retired now, so he's a bishop emeritus. very well known for his stand against abortion, which of course the church is against abortion. Bishop would be inclined to say that. And you have to understand, when you're on TV, and I've been on network TV, when you're on TV, you're, I can't remember if he was in the studio. I don't think he was. I think he was back in his own place. But that doesn't mean anything. You're literally there. You've got an earpiece in your ear. You've got the control room telling you at times when you're about to go on the air. They're pretty well silent during your interview. When you're going on the air, you realize that everything you say is basically becoming a record, and you're trying to do as best as you can, and you're trying to make your statement. You realize that this is not the place to make a statement that is the law because of the fact of the nature of the forum. We're going to talk more on the other side of the break. You're listening to the voice of St. Anthony Parish in Alston. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. And don't forget, you can find us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also find us at stanthonyalston.org, so check those out, CatholicAudiomedia.com or stanthonyalston.org. So we're talking about these powerful messages. And this powerful situation that, Cardinal Burke is talking about, where the Pope may say some statement and all of a sudden people will say, well, this is now the law of the church. And he says, no, that's not the way it works. Well, I'm explaining to you what it's like to be on national TV. So you try your best to be as good as you can when you're answering these questions, but you realize you're being challenged, and Chris Matthews was intense at it, and you really had to know what you were doing. And in this case, which the bishop wasn't prepared for, Chris Matthews asked him this type of question, but for obvious reasons it wasn't this question. That type of question: do you still beat your wife? And he just very simply, right out of the box, just basically put the bishop in checkmate. And, if you don't know what you're doing, then that's what happens. So when reporters are talking to the Pope, he's got a lot going on at the time. And remember, he is not a native English speaker. He is a native Spanish speaker. I do believe he also speaks Italian because he has Italian heritage. So when he's being asked questions and he's trying to be as pastoral as he can by responding, he's not going to be able to respond as accurately as maybe he should because of the forum. It's a very difficult forum. It's not a forum where you make a statement that is going to become the law of the church. So what Cardinal Burke is bringing out is the Pope is making these statements which are part of the interview. They are not the law of the church. And then all of a sudden, bam, people are saying, well, he's the Pope, so everything he says is now the law. Well, there's a reason why they'll say that. And Cardinal Burke tries to correct this, which he does a good job. But if you were talking to the CEO of a company, guess what? Everything that comes out of the CEO's mouth becomes the law of the company, pretty much, unless he corrects that later on. And that's the way it works. But everything that comes out of the president's mouth is not necessarily the law, because that has to go through the process of Congress and everything else. And even if he makes it an executive order, if he just says this during an interview, that's not an executive order. It has to be drawn up and everything else. So there's those issues. And so when you're talking to the Pope, he's closer to the idea of the president than the CEO. And in the case of the president, you have the person and you have the office. So if Joe Biden says tomorrow, I hate chocolate, which he's not going to say, and I love chocolate, so all the chocolate manufacturers, just don't worry. I hate chocolates. I wish chocolate didn't exist in the world. He's not making a law that you can't have chocolate anymore in the world. He's speaking as the president, as President Joe Biden, but he's speaking as Joe Biden. And that's an important consideration. And basically what Cardinal Burke is saying about the Pope is he's doing the same thing. He's saying, make a statement. And he's making the statement as basically who he is, which is who he is as Pope Francis, also at the same time, Bishop Jorge Bergoglio. He's not one or the other, but he's making that statement, and Cardinal Burke is making it clear. He says, you can't take these as the law. You have to take these within context, and that's an important consideration. We're going to talk more tomorrow. We'll see you then. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.